Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Friday to you. It's finally here, Friday, and I know you're happy about that. I know Gary Austin's happy about that. He's got lots of things he wants to tell you about in the news this morning, and he'll be joining us right now. I want to tell you that the heavy rains yesterday over the Kennedy Space Center forced NASA to delay the launch of the Space Shuttle Discovery still another day. The new launch today will be at 1:04 p.m. Check that. 3:04 p.m. apparently is when that will go. But their forecast for today for the launch site calls for few clouds and no rain, but high winds.
Boy,
So we'll have to see about that.
it's always something. You know, if it's not the rain, it's the wind there. They hope to get it off the ground today, but boy, it's really up in the air.
The Discovery is going stubbornly into that great night, as they say, because this is the last launch of Discovery. Then it gets mothballed and sent to a museum somewhere, and Discovery's very stubbornly sticking around, isn't it? Meanwhile, the president is in the friendly skies, off to Asia, and he's going to make stops in India, Indonesia, and attend a G20 summit in South Korea and an economic forum in Japan. There was a big rumor going around, maybe you heard about this, Gary, that the president was taking 3,000 people with him, and it was going to cost something like $200 million a day for this trip. Seems like an awful lot of money, and maybe it's urban legend and maybe it isn't, but that was the talk yesterday at the Catharsis party in Lansing. There was a lot of buzz about it, and they were saying that this was one of those hoaxes that was going around on the internet. The president has,
Yeah, I was going to say on this president's trip, one thing we should note here, the U.S. is being accused of something pretty serious, protectionism of all things, and there are quite a few European countries and Asian countries are saying, we're not, wait a minute, hold on a second here. The playing field uneven, talk about trade imbalance on their side. Well, they're accusing us of protectionism now. So the president, I think, he's going to have a tough time trying to find a meeting ground between all of those who say we're not playing fair.
He's asking for a summit. Did you see that?
Yeah, he is.
He
and it's a good thing,
kind
too.
Of,
you bet.
gathering, post-election summit on November 18th.
Yeah.
I will tell you this: that big fight is coming in the lame duck session about whether to extend the Bush tax cuts to everyone or just the middle class. That seems to be the biggest fight that's coming. And something that you said yesterday was interesting when we were talking to Congressman Hoekstra, and Congressman Hoekstra said that there's no way that the health care reform is going to get repealed because it might make it through the House, but it won't make it through the Senate. And then he said even if some senators fell asleep and it made it through the Senate, that the president would veto, recalling or reversing the health care reform. And he said a lot of voters are going to be disappointed because some of those candidates ran on the promise that they would stop so-called Obamacare.
Right.
And this morning I heard that Senator Mitch McConnell saying they should keep passing it over and over and over in order to prove a point. Keep sending it to the Senate, keep sending it to the president just to prove the point. Now, you talk about useless politics. Isn't that exactly what we're, it's all show business, right?
Well, what Mitch McConnell wants to do, he wants to call attention. I mean, he knows full well, just like we were told yesterday by Congressman Hoekstra, that, you float a repeal of the health care plan to the president. He's going to veto it every time. But McConnell, he wants to keep reemphasizing the fact that most Americans don't like this. And he figures if you hammer away at it enough, they can piece by piece chip away at parts of the health care plan, not repeal it entirely, but piece by piece target certain areas. And by calling attention to the situation, he says, will also help educate us, as Mitch McConnell says, is this legislation, as he says, is just way overstepping the bounds of federal government involvement in our personal health care. So he figures by hammering away at that, the message will get clear and put pressure on some Democrats who may be on the fence on this, and perhaps if things work out, it won't happen right away, McConnell says, but maybe later next year something significant may happen, so we could see maybe not an entire repeal, but at least big chunks of it being repealed.
So some of those issues would have bipartisan support.
Well, you'd think so, and I would think many Democrats now, looking at some of their fellow Democrats who are now jobless, in large degree because the analysts say they voted and supported federal health care reform. Perhaps there are going to be some Democrats who may be worried when they're up for election next time if it's perceived they're too supportive of this federal health care plan, they could end up in the same boat as jobless Democrats are right now. So I think that could be the concern of some Democrats as they look at this and also get a gauge to see how Americans feel about federal health care reform as the months progress.
We should be grateful that we don't live in Haiti. They're still recovering from the earthquake, and now Tropical Storm Tomas is headed their way. Torrential rains with accumulations of up to 15 inches predicted for part of the coast in Haiti. Can you imagine what a mess that would be? By the way, the White House is expressing confidence that the government will recover the huge investment in General Motors. Robert Gibbs, the White House spokesperson yesterday, said that GM's finalized plan to offer about $13 billion in stock to help repay the loans to the federal government will work out just fine. We're going to talk with Jamie Westenbarger from Forest Hills Financial coming up shortly about the idea of General Motors repaying its debt through that IPO, which is in about 2 weeks from right now, somewhere between $25 and $27 a share. General Motors says it can make $13 billion a year. That's what they're predicting if they can continue to expand their business in China and ramp things up in the U.S. And shortly, too, Senator Gretchen Whitmer, who was unanimously elected the Senate Minority Leader yesterday for the term starting in 2011. That's the first woman ever to lead a Michigan Senate caucus. And so we'll talk with her about what her approach will be to that position. That should be interesting.
Yeah, huh? You know, MPS, on the GM story, there were so many had doubts that GM would be able to pull this off. But I wonder how history will judge this decision by, well, it really started under the Bush administration and was followed through by President Obama to really, give GM an unprecedented ton of money to, in effect, for all intents and purposes, save the company and all those jobs. And as we know, with, with GM and salvaged, that is wonderful for Michigan. Imagine the impact if GM had have gone under. So I think MPS, in retrospect, it had a lot of critics going in, those who said the government had no business getting involved in something like this. But others would say, you know what, government got involved, all those jobs were saved. GM, it appears to be on the road to recovery. And if the government gets every dime back that it invested in GM, I don't see how many could argue the fact that maybe this wasn't a good thing after all. Even the critics, maybe they may have a change of heart once this all shakes out, hopefully for the positive. It certainly looks that way.
Senator Mike Bishop yesterday, the Senate Majority Leader in the lame duck session, said there will be no action on the Detroit River International Crossing. That's going to be left for the next group. They're only going to have, 5 session days left. And Bishop said the Senate will adjourn on December 2nd.
Meanwhile, yeah? Got a cool story here. I want to mention this, it being a Friday and all, and this happened this week in Windsor. They are coming from far and wide to see what many are calling a miracle. Here's what's going on. A woman, she's got a place there, and she has a statue of the Virgin Mary, and she says it's actually crying tears made of holy oil, and people have come out, and they're convinced this is really happening, and that this statue has healing powers. Okay, imagine that. Okay, that being the case, crowds are coming in from all over, and because of this, the crowd control situation, now the city of Windsor has stepped in and said she has to get a permit for the statue. And she has a few weeks to do this, and if she doesn't get a permit for the statue, a city permit, she's got to put it back inside, out of sight, so no one can see it. It's drawing that many people. So anyway,
we should talk with Father Mark Inglet or possibly Father Joe Krupp about this and see what the church is saying about it. There are videos online where you can see the statue weeping and that sort of thing. Hundreds of people, as Gary said, maybe thousands now, have been making their way to see this.
And right nearby, MPS in Wayne County, the Board of Commissioners took a vote and decided it's time for a new jail. This is one of those stories that happened this week, hoping to raise $300 million in bonds to help make this happen. Now, this is really a big deal in Wayne County because the plan is this. It would actually be used to consolidate 3 jails into one, and that's quite a big undertaking, an attempt to raise $300 million in bonds in Wayne County.
All right, and now the Debbie Dingell, she's a Democratic National Committee woman. This is kind of interesting. She thinks that the gubernatorial race in Michigan was, quote, overpolled. And some of the data that got into the news cycle wasn't reliable, and she thinks that hurt Verge Bernero's chances in the general election because people kept hearing, that race is over, and they didn't really get involved and maybe didn't turn up to vote.
Yep, polls will do that. MPS story out of Grand Rapids here. Remember we talked about this a few weeks ago, that woman who made national headlines advertising for that Christian roommate? and there was some
Oh, yeah.
concerns that she may face charges. Turns out, well, her name is Tricia Rowe, and her attorney says this is the way it shook out. She will not be charged, first of all. And her attorney says this whole business about advertising like this and using the name Christian and advertising the way she did, the state law should be revised. Now, the Office of Fair Housing disagrees, though, but has agreed to drop the case because of Rowe's constitutional rights to religion and association. However, the Fair Housing Center of West Michigan could still take action on this and sue Rowe directly in federal court. So on one hand, on one level, this case is closed for Tricia Rowe in her advertising for a Christian roommate. But here, it looks like West Michigan, the Fair Housing Center, could still take action. We'll keep you posted.
More news and sports and reminiscences about Sparky Anderson,
Yes.
who passed away yesterday, will join us. Will be with us when we get back. It's 18 after the hour, so we're back in 4 minutes. It's Michael Patrick Shields on the Michigan Talk Network.
So down the field and gain a Lions victory.
Ken Delafour. Is that Ken Delafour singing that song, or is that somebody else? That's the Lions fight song, as you know. Ken is the Senior Vice President of Group Sales and Corporate Marketing for Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Played for the Lions, the Steelers, the Chargers, the Michigan Panthers, and the Golden Gophers of Minnesota, who come to Michigan State this weekend in East Lansing. Good morning to you, Pro.
Hey, good morning, Michael Patrick, and I'm still pumping my arms from those Lions and the victory over the Redskins last week.
You got one right. That's pretty good. What the heck?
Yeah, thanks.
There's all sorts of intrigue with this weekend's game with the Jets coming to Ford Field, which I guess the Minnesota or the game last week, the Washington game, wasn't sold out, so people didn't get to see it. We didn't get to see it on television here in the state capitol. But this game sold out. Do you think those are Jets fans turning up, or are the Lions fans just fickle? They like a victory, they'll turn up next time.
I think it's both. I think people are really intrigued by this matchup of the Jets and Sanchez. Matthew Stafford, it was kind of like, did we take the right quarterback? All that kind of stuff in the air. And then we're going to get to see Calvin Johnson against the premier corner with Revis, and that's going to be quite a matchup. So, and the excitement of the win last weekend, I think people are starting to say, hey, the Lions have what looks to be a legitimate team and fun to watch.
Yeah, the Jets were like the darling NFL team, and everybody kind of expected them to go to the Super Bowl. They said they expected to be at the Super Bowl, and they were on that HBO show, Hard Knocks, I think is what it was called, in the offseason. So we got that inside look at the Jets, and they've been kind of a bust this year, haven't they?
I wouldn't say a bust yet because there's a lot of season, and they're still in the thick and the hunt of everything. But I would say that they've gotten some notoriety, and Rex Ryan is quite a character, colorful, and people are interested in him.
He was, every other word was a foul language on that program on HBO so badly that his own mother, I guess in the media, told him he should stop talking like that on television. And then they had the troubles, of course, with the sideline reporter, and were they sexually harassing her in the locker room. And then, of course, and Brett Favre didn't do them any favors either when he got in the scandal from his time when he was at the Jets, sending text messages and so forth. So they've had a lot of distraction. But I think you're right. I think it's interesting to see Matthew Stafford go against Sanchez because they were if I'm not mistaken, the top two quarterbacks picked in that draft. And there were some people, myself included, who might have thought maybe Sanchez would have been a more interesting choice. Now, the funny thing is they both played that rookie season, and their stats were about the same as I understand it, but Sanchez and the Jets went a lot farther, went deep into the playoffs.
That's right. And the difference is that Sanchez was on a team that had a great defense, and they had a great running game as well. When you look at Matthew Stafford and the team that's starting to develop around him with the Lions, a lot of that's holding true. And I think as we kind of go forward, it'll be interesting to measure the progress of the two players now being more on equal footing as far as the team that's around them.
I'm sure that Matthew Stafford at quarterback now feels like, it's almost like he had a jalopy last year to drive, and this year he's got some, a new car with maybe some special buttons and this and that, and it feels a lot better at quarterback when you have that kind of support around you, not to mention Javid Best in the backfield.
Absolutely, and he's going to have fun with all his receivers, his running game, the offensive line. I think is playing well, and I think even more importantly than that, he's got a defense on the other side of the ball that's going to start sacking the quarterback. We're way up there in the turnovers or takeaways, and I think we have 24 sacks as a team. That's the stuff that starts converting into opportunities for your offense too.
Who do you like in the game?
I'm going to take the Lions. I know that the Jets are favored by 4. I have to go with the Lions, and I'm just excited that I think they're ready to kind of prove who they are, and they're ready to take the Jets on with Rex Ryan putting some locker room wallpaper in the paper, if you will, about how they expect to come in and shut this offense down. It'll be a fun game.
This be kind of a statement game?
I'll tell you Monday. I think it is. I think it is for them, and it's an opportunity for them to turn the corner here.
That's a great point. So we'll stay tuned for that. The Lions are always involved in these sort of strange situations in the NFL, like the catch in Game 1 that wasn't a catch, and then last weekend when the Redskins decided to pull Donovan McNabb for the 2-minute drill and put in the old quarterback from Chicago there, and people were talking about that for days. They thought it was one of the strangest decisions they'd ever seen.
Well, it was a strange decision, but when you kind of go back and review, Donovan McNabb was sacked 6 times running for his life, and he didn't look like the Donovan McNabb of old, and they're probably just grasping for straws to try to change that. But who knows what all that means in the heat of the battle, and I guess this week will tell too as the Redskins go through their season.
What about these Golden Gophers now coming into East Lansing? Your old team, the University of Minnesota, is going to play at noon at the Spartan Stadium tomorrow. That's a team seemingly in huge disarray, too.
Absolutely, they are, and I feel bad for the program. One would have thought that the program was on the right track up at the University of Minnesota, and it appears not to be the case. And Michigan State's got a great chance to get healthy here, and they're probably going to take out some anger on the Gophers, and they probably should. And I think Michigan State will win handily against my old team there.
Did you ever meet Sparky Anderson?
I did a couple of occasions, just brief encounters, and like everybody's saying in his passing, what a fine man he was. And I remember one of his comments in a speech he gave at a dinner was that, and talked about his father saying it doesn't cost you anything extra to be nice to people, and he always sort of displayed that in his behaviors.
It's interesting. He's very fond of that statement, and probably that's going to be his epitaph. But when I wrote this book with Larry King, it was called Lessons I Learned from My Father. And I called Sparky, basically it was a collection of famous people talking about what they learned from their father. And Sparky called me back, and he left a voicemail. He said, here's what I'd like you to put in the book for me. And he told that story that you just told about how his father told him that there's something that doesn't cost you any money at all, and you can do it your whole life. Be nice to people. So I got my son Harrison, who was, I don't know, he's probably 6 or 7 at the time, and I made him listen to that voicemail over and over because it doesn't cost you anything to be nice to people, he told me. But I've got this new book that you were involved with. You helped me. Well, actually, you came up with the title for it called Invite Yourself to the Party. And that story will be told in Chapter 1. Trust me there. But it comes out in a couple weeks. And on the back cover, there's an endorsement from Sparky Anderson. So I'm eternally grateful to him for that and all the time that I got to spend getting to know him as J.P. McCarthy's producer when we would wake him up at all hours of the day and night. We had an arrangement where we'd call him after every game, whether it was West Coast or East Coast or whatever. And as a young person, I was very afraid to call and wake him up sometimes, at 4:30 in the morning in California. And he was never cross. I could imagine there would have been times where, could you just leave me alone this morning? Or, but he never did that. He was always friendly and very nice to me. So we're sorry to hear about the news on the passing of Sparky Anderson. And I'm glad you got a chance to meet him a couple times yourself, too. So travel safely this weekend. Good luck to your Lions. Less good luck to your Golden Gophers. And we'll talk Monday morning.
Well, thanks, Michael Patrick, and you have a great day and a great weekend.
All the best to you. That's Ken Dallafor, Senior Vice President, Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan. Also played for the Detroit Lions, the Steelers, the Chargers, and we'll just kind of give him a pass on those Golden Gophers that he played for. Congratulations this morning to our Northwood University Leader of the Day. Northwood University is celebrating 50 years of producing leaders, and it's Senator Gretchen Whitmer, the Democrat from East Lansing, unanimously elected Senate Minority Leader, becoming the first woman to ever lead a Michigan Senate caucus. Congratulations, Senator Whitmer.
Thanks, MPS. Good to talk to you.
Yeah, we appreciate you being up early, too, this morning. Now, what will this mean for you, and how will you lead?
Well, what it means is when the quadrants get together, which means the leaders of both caucuses in both the House and the Senate, I'll be the person there on behalf of the Senate Democrats. And our numbers have shrunk, but we've got some really talented people in our caucus, and I think we're still going to be, a very vital part of the agenda-setting process and decision-making process, and I'm eager to work with the new governor.
So you're in an interesting position because you have to represent the people who voted for you, and you have to represent the rest of the Senate Democrats. Is there much divide between the sentiment of the two, you think?
I don't know that there is. I held a leadership position in the House when I was a ranking member on appropriations, where all the budgets are. And, whenever you have that conflict, you always go back to representing your constituency first because they're the people that elected you. But I've never had that conflict. So hopefully there won't be, but if there is, you know what my priorities are.
The people who elected you. Do you think that you're expected to go and compromise now, or are you expected to play to the base and hold the hard line?
Well, that's a good question. Someone said, are you going to be a bomb thrower, or are you going to try to figure out where you can make the most impact? And I was raised, by a Milliken Republican and a Frank Kelly Democrat, and two public servants who put public service above self-service, and I hope to emulate that and try to find the common ground where we can, fight for the things that where we can't find common ground, and just produce whatever is going to be in the best interest of Michigan. No more gimmicks, no more games. We've got to look long-term down the road what's in the best interest of the state of Michigan.
Mike Bishop, the current Senate Majority Leader, says that Senate's going to adjourn on December 2nd. That's only 5 session days left. Is there much that can be accomplished in those 5 days, or is that too small a window to get much done?
I don't think there's a whole lot teed up to get done, unfortunately. And with the Republicans taking over the whole state government, I don't think they're very motivated to stick around town while they're in the minority. They'll just wait until they take over, and then they'll start running their own agenda. So it's unfortunate because I think there are some things that we could do. Anti-bullying legislation that's been sitting around for a long time. But we will see what we end up doing. I'm not optimistic, but I still keep hope alive.
Is Randy Richardville going to be the Senate Majority Leader?
I don't know. I don't have a vote in that caucus, but I know it's between him and John Prose, and I think I can work with either one of them.
All right.
I've got a long-term relationship. I've worked with Randy for many, many years, and Prose relatively shorter-term relationship working with him, but I'll work with whomever it is.
Have you spent much time with Rick Snyder? Wouldn't think so.
I haven't.
Yeah.
I haven't.
You probably will now, though, eh?
I imagine we will get some quality time in, and I'm looking forward to it. I've heard some really good things about him, and I hope they all prove to be true.
Well, we'll be in touch if you'll keep in touch with us. Congratulations. We want to hear about it every step of the way, and all the best to you.
You bet. Thanks so much, Michael Patrick.
Senator Gretchen Whitmer, the new Senate Minority Leader, or Senate Democrat Leader is like the way they like to say it now. More of your Friday morning when we get back. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Some film executives came in yesterday, film industry guys, and they told Senator Nancy Cassis that if you change the film tax credit, the industry in Michigan will die. So there's the answer to your question is, could we possibly adjust it a little bit so it doesn't cost the state so much? And the film industry people said, no, you can't. You better leave it right there. So that remains to be seen what will happen under the new administration of Rick Snyder. A woman who made national headlines, you heard Gary Austin say after she advertised for a Christian roommate, is not going to face any charges. They decided that cooler heads should prevail in that situation. And after all, she does have a constitutional right to religion and association. So it was sort of the smashing of two tenets of government together, and that is equal and fair housing and the right to religious association. There's a man in Allegan County with a long rap sheet, and guess what he's done now? He's killed a woman's small dog. Craig Frost became irritated with how loud the dog was, and he kicked the dog until it died. Frost was staying with the owner of the dog, who woke up and called 911. He fled. They caught him, and he's got a felony and will face more charges now, too. The Michigan Liquor Control Commission announced yesterday it's going to ban the sale of all alcoholic energy drinks in the state of Michigan because of mounting concerns that beverages aren't safe and create health risks. There's been the hospitalization of 9 college students in Washington State after they drank this caffeinated malt liquor, and so now we're going to get rid of those, I guess, in the state of Michigan. What do I have here? I have a Powerade Zero. That doesn't have any alcohol in it, does it? No. That should be good. It's not an alcoholic. It's just a plain old calorie-free sports drink. The 65-foot blue spruce is going to be delivered to the Capitol Saturday morning. That is going to be the 2010 state Christmas tree. There were nominations from across the state. That tree is being cut down today from Marquette County. Rudy and Ruth Mackey of Iron Mountain donated the tree, and it will come down here and go up in front of the Capitol. And usually every year we get to talk to the people who have donated the Capitol Christmas tree, and we will do that. Always nice to hear from them. The Dow surged up 220 yesterday. The S&P gained 23, and the NASDAQ was up 37. We are joined this morning by Jamie Westenbarger from Forest Hills Financial, the registered principal of Invest Financial and the president of Forest Hills Financial. Invest is not affiliated with Forest Hills Financial, so opinions expressed are those of Jamie and not necessarily those of Invest. Good morning to you.
Morning, Mike Patrick. How you doing?
Good. I thought maybe the Dow would get a bump the day after the election, but it happened on Thursday. Any ideas why?
Well, there's a couple different things that happened. Yesterday, there was the announcement, of course, that the Federal Reserve is going to shoot another $600 billion into the overall liquidity of the system, which some are accounting for the bump. But I think one of the biggest things that happened, too, is President Obama indicated that he's inclined to agree with the Republicans, at least for a few years, and maintain the tax cuts. And that uncertainty has really been one of the big things, in a lot of people's opinion, that's been holding the market back is, you know, what's the tax rates going to look like starting next year, because there was a lot of concerns that there would be a sell-off at the end of the year to lock in a tax rate that everyone could count on. So his making that statement on Wednesday and then following it up yesterday with some clarification that he would be inclined to extend all the tax cuts, I think gave investors at least the information that they were kind of looking for.
But my understanding is the White House is going to, they insist on extending the Bush-era tax cuts, but only for the middle class, not for the wealthy. That's going to be the big fight here in the lame duck session, isn't it?
Yeah, actually on Wednesday and then again yesterday, they indicated that they would be open-minded to extending all of them for the next couple of years to allow the economy to rebound. So that was a huge reversal on what they said before they lost all their power in the House and Senate. So a big reverse course by the White House in the last 48 hours on that, and investors were definitely watching that to see what's going to happen with it. And now we'll just have to see if they actually go through with it and what happens before January 1st.
Texas Congressman Ron Paul said he's going to lead the push for greater oversight of the Federal Reserve in January. He thinks the Fed is way too independent. Any thoughts on that?
Well, Ron Paul always has been a big critic of the way the Federal Reserve works. The one thing that I think the last couple of years have brought to light is how much power the Federal Reserve really does have over the overall economy when basically a board of directors can sit down yesterday and just decide to shoot $600 billion into the overall Treasury system. He probably has some points there that, this is an unelected official. This is a person that's appointed, and that's a pretty large amount of power and responsibility for someone that people have no say of who that person is going to be.
General Motors very quickly is saying they could earn $13 billion a year if auto sales return to normal levels, and they keep growing in places like China. Do you believe that to be true?
Well, being a Michigan guy and you being a Michigan guy, I hope they're right. I'd love to see them return to that kind of profitability. I think they maybe need to take a few baby steps before that, and we're not too far out of a bankruptcy here, so let's just keep watching them put their left front in front of the right one, and hopefully they do get to that.
We'll keep watching for that IPO, too. Jamie Westenbarger, Forest Hills Financials. It's about 2 weeks away when you'll be able to buy GM stock again. Back in a flash, it's Michael Patrick Shields. Here we are now, 9 minutes before the hour. We never let the birthday of a beautiful woman pass without taking note. Elkie Summer is 70 today, and Tatum O'Neal is 47. She got the Academy Award at the age of 10 in Paper Moon, and remember, she was in the Bad News Bears and Little Darlings. Happy birthday, darlings, to all of you on this Firekeepers Casino Friday morning. I think I'm going to go watch the Lions game at Firekeepers on Sunday because Dr. Christine has a couple of her nieces in, and they're going to go do girly stuff. You know, they're going to go to Mary Poppins at the Breslin Center, or at the Wharton Center, and then they're going to go to Douglas J and get their nails done and all that stuff. I'm going to clear on out. And I'm going to go tailgating, though, for the Michigan State game on Saturday morning on my Jameson Irish Whiskey green and white bike. So if you see me out there at your tailgate party, I hope you'll wave me over so that we can share a libation as we get ready for the game. And then when you go into the stadium, I'm going home to the couch. But on Sunday, I think I'm going to go to Firekeepers and watch the Lions on one of their flat screen TVs, maybe have a cigar because you can smoke in there. And I don't do that very often, but it is fun. And I'll play a little blackjack and play some baccarat and have a guy's day. Anybody wants to go with me, just let me know. I'll be there. Okay, that's a 1 o'clock game for the Lions, too. 6-year-old mare Zenyatta, get this, is going to try to finish her horse racing career at a perfect 20-0. 20 wins in 20 starts, racing in the $5 million Breeders' Cup Classic Saturday at Churchill Downs. She is also the defending champion of the Breeders' Cup, so good luck there. In Kentucky, the Red Wings are going to skate against the Oilers in Edmonton tonight in the second game of their 3-game road trip. And Michigan's football program is going to serve an additional year of probation for violating rules on practice time and coaching limits. The NCAA made their announcement yesterday, and the people at the University of Michigan are very happy with that result. Lions defensive tackle Ndamukong Suh has been named the NFL Rookie of the Month for October. Congratulations to him. And Javid Best was named the NFL's Rookie of the Month for September. So we got some hot, good young players. Pistons are still looking for their first win of the season. They host the Charlotte Bobcats at the Palace tonight. And in the big news here in the state of Michigan, Sparky Anderson, the former Reds manager and Tigers manager, passed away at the age of 76 yesterday. He led Cincinnati's Big Red Machine to 2 World Series titles and then did it again over in the American League with Detroit in 1984. He ranks 6th on baseball's all-time managerial win list and is in the Baseball Hall of Fame and was very well known to me and to others. Here's what Sparky said in his Hall of Fame induction speech about the sport of baseball.
And when I look out here today, if you don't think baseball is the greatest game that the kids ever made, if you don't think it's the greatest game, leave, because you're missing it all. It's the greatest game there ever was.
Greg Johnson from the Grand Rapids Press covers the Michigan State Spartans. He'll be at the Minnesota game this weekend, but I know he met Sparky Anderson on a number of occasions, too, when he covered the Tigers. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael. Yeah, Spark was a great one. He was one of those one-question interviews. I met him one time at a restaurant in Grand Rapids, and we walked along the Grand River. And basically I said, "Hi, Spark, can I ask you a few questions today?" And he said, "Sure," and I never had to ask another one. It was an hour-long interview and a great walk.
He liked to walk, didn't he? He used to walk on the road, I'm told, every morning with Ernie Harwell.
Yeah, he was a walker and a talker, and boy, he could talk. He just kept going. He had his pipe going that morning and just talking away. It was great.
You know, when you start to think about the fact that he was 76, and then you do the math, and you go back to 84, he looked like he was 76 in 1984 with that white hair and that weathered face, you know, the suntan face and everything. But at the same time, he had a boyish manner about him, didn't he?
He did. That was the thing. You talked to him. He was kind of a caricature, a live caricature. He was just a unique guy. He was like the perfect baseball manager to me. When I think of baseball, I think of people like Sparky. He was just something else.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I may have told this story yesterday, but at Tiger Stadium, he was in a big argument with the home plate ump. And you know how they get so hysterical in those arguments. And he took his hat and threw it way up, 30 feet up into the air. And the umpire said, "If that hat comes down, you're out of here." Sure enough, it did. And out he went. But he that was calculated, I think, wasn't it, on a lot of those occasions?
Well, I think most of the time when he did it, it was. He was thinking the game. He decided he either had to protect the player to send a message or he was just letting the ump know it's time for me to stir this team up, so why don't you kick me out of here?
How will the Spartans rebound against the Golden Gophers, you think? What's the mood of the team this week?
I think they were pretty fired up to get back out, and I think they were embarrassed last week. So usually when you're embarrassed, you come back strong. So I think they'll come back and play hard, and I think they'll win. That's a team that was taking great pride in being 8-0, and they kind of got their pants pulled down in public last week. So I think they'll come back and play really hard.
Okay. We'll read about it in the Grand Rapids Press with our friend Greg Johnson, who will be covering the game. It's a Firekeepers Casino Friday. It's Michael Patrick Shields. It's also Guy Fawkes Day. What does that mean? We'll explain. We'll go live to London when we get back and be with Nikki Hale, our world correspondent. Western Michigan plays at Central Michigan in that rivalry game tonight at 6 o'clock. That'll be on ESPNU. And the line is Central Michigan is the underdog by 3.5. So we'll have more live from Kalamazoo and Mount Pleasant as we go through this Friday morning. It's Michael Patrick Shields.
Good morning, world.
Good morning, Michigan. A very pleasant Friday to you. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Let me give you the news as quickly as I can. And Gary Austin, you can chime in, too. There were heavy rains yesterday at the Kennedy Space Center, so there was no launch of the Discovery shuttle. And Discovery's being stubborn. It's going to be the last mission ever. And after Discovery returns to Earth, it'll be sent to a museum, so it seems like the old girl doesn't want to go. They're going to try again to launch. Weather looks okay, except that there could be high winds at Kennedy Space Center. President Obama in Asia. He's going to go to India, Indonesia, South Korea, and Japan on that trip. And then he wants a post-election summit of Republican and Democratic leaders on November 18th. The weather, terrible in Haiti now, still recovering from that earthquake. Now they're going to get torrential rains from Tropical Storm Tomas. There'll be 15 inches. That will mean flooding in Haiti. The White House expressing confidence that the government will recover its huge investment in General Motors. The presidential spokesperson, Robert Gibbs, said that the offer of about $13 billion in stock will help repay the government. That IPO coming in a week or two. The cost of a common stock share of General Motors will be somewhere between $25 and $27 if you're interested in investing. General Motors is saying, hey, we can make billions of dollars a year if the automotive sales numbers ever come back in the U.S. and if we can continue to do great business in China. Democratic National Committee woman Debbie Dingell said the recent gubernatorial race was overpolled, and some of that data that got into the news cycle wasn't reliable, and that hurt Verge Bernero's chances of being elected governor. Did we get too much polling data, and was any of it reliable? In other words, when you heard that Rick Snyder had a 20-point lead, did you say to yourself, well, this thing's over, I don't need to get involved, I don't need to donate, and maybe I don't even need to vote? Gretchen Whitmer, the Democratic senator from East Lansing, is unanimously elected Senate Minority Leader. She is the first woman ever to lead a Michigan Senate caucus. We talked to her earlier this morning and congratulated her. The Senate Majority Leader right now, lame duck Mike Bishop, the Republican from Rochester, says there will be no movement on that DRIC bill. What is that? That's that new international crossing between Detroit and Windsor. And now the Senate Majority Leader says the Senate's going to adjourn December 2nd, just 5 session days remaining. And Senator Whitmer told us earlier this morning there's not really much that can get done in that short amount of time. Senator Nancy Cassis, who has been holding up, she's kind of very dubious about the film tax credit. Well, some industry executives came in and said, you know what, if you change the film tax credit, the production industry that's growing in Michigan will die. That's it. Simple as that. That is some of the news this morning, because Rick Snyder apparently has been sort of looking at the idea of maybe lessening that tax credit. He thinks maybe it costs the state too much money. The Michigan Liquor Control Commission is going to ban sale of all alcoholic energy drinks in the state, because they think those aren't safe and there are health risks involved. And the 65-foot blue spruce will be delivered to the Capitol at 8:30 Saturday morning. That'll be the state Christmas tree for 2010, and it's coming all the way from Iron Mountain. We'll talk to the people who donated that tree coming shortly. Gary Austin, I did a pretty good round robin there, it sounds like to me.
Nice wrap-up.
Try to do it very quickly, you know what I mean?
Yeah, firing it along. Very good.
Fire along on Firekeepers Friday.
Good way to put it. But you know what? Prevent a bad fire in your house and you going up in smoke with it by changing the smoke alarm battery, and it's the weekend we do that because
it's also the daylight savings weekend, isn't it?
This is it. Boy, just every time you turn around, it's time to do that again. It's time flies. In any event, daylight savings time comes to an end on Sunday, and we have all of the experts for the International Association of Fire Chiefs reminding us
Extra
to replace
hour
those.
of sleep.
Yes.
You hear that, everybody? An extra hour of sleep, or an extra hour at the bar if you're out at 2 a.m. You know
And
that? Normally you got to kick everybody out at 2, but at 2 o'clock, they turn the clock back and they get another hour.
MPS, you're missing the point of the story. You're all excited about that extra hour.
Yeah,
of
all right.
drinking.
I got to change my battery and
Yeah,
the
yeah.
smoke detector out.
Do
You know
that.
what?
Before you start drinking, change the batteries.
That's a
How's
good
that?
way to do it. Ann Doyle is with us from Ann Doyle Strategies, Gary, because Ann Doyle and her family were very close with the now late former Tigers manager Sparky Anderson, who passed away at the age of 76 in California yesterday. Ann Doyle, good morning to you.
Good morning, Michael Patrick.
Let us hear the voice of Sparky Anderson here for just a moment when he was inducted into the Baseball Hall of Fame.
And when I look out here today, if you don't think baseball is the greatest game that the kids ever made, if you don't think it's the greatest game, leave, because you're missing it all. It's the greatest game there ever was.
There you have it. And tell me about your memories of Sparky and your family's relationship, if you would, please.
Oh, Sparky Anderson. I mean, we're all talking about him today. He's one of those people who, of course, all you have to know is his first name and you know who we're talking about. And we named our Dalmatian after Sparky Anderson. We had a dog named Sparky. But, you know, of course, my dad covered the Tigers for many, many years and became very close to Sparky because they were kind of part of the same generation. But I think a unique piece that I can add to this whole the memories that we're recounting today are the point about women going into the locker room, because everybody knows that Sparky Anderson, of course, was old school about how he ran his teams and what he expected of his players. And, you know, women coming into the locker room, I'm sure he was very, very uncomfortable with that whole thing. But that's what was going on, you know, when he was hired by the Tigers, of course, in 1979, and that's exactly when all this was happening. And he, you know, he was very cool about the whole thing. I mean, I remember the pained expressions on his face, and when I first was in there, I mean, he was not particularly warm. But Sparky never said anything negative. He certainly never blocked anything. And eventually, as I earned my stripes, which everyone had to do with him ultimately, he warmed up to me, and he was tremendous to me. I think the fact that he had a lot of respect for my dad helped give me a chance. But that's what I would say about him, is he, you know, he was quiet about it. And then as I earned my stripes, I mean, he was very, very warm and very great to me. So I just have tremendous respect for, you know, he was a man of great integrity. I think everybody talked about that. Not only was he this charismatic personality, but he had very, very high personal standards.
Animated character he was too, wasn't he?
Yeah, I mean, right. And you didn't, I mean, some people would say, you know, that Sparky Anderson was a performer. And that's perhaps true, you know. I mean, Sparky was a talker, and he would talk about absolutely anything. And you didn't see Sparky down very much, but, you know, some of the players are recounting some of the things where he had a very, very serious side. But he was a showman, and what we all remember as fans is that gigantic grin and that warmth and that joy that just filled up Tiger Stadium when he ran out onto the field and waved to people. And, you know, he was very close to Ernie Harwell, of course. Mm-hmm. And those were very, very different personalities. You know, he was much more exuberant than Ernie, but they were both salt-of-the-earth men.
Yeah, one of the last interviews I did with Mr. Harwell, we talked about those walks that he and Sparky Anderson used to take on the road, and every morning at around 7 or 7:30, and he said that they would talk about everything but baseball during those walks. There was, you know, these were men that were far beyond just the sport, even though they both loved the sport so much. and the two of them would take that stroll every morning and just talk about life and this and that. And whatever. One of the other things that I remember about George was his real name, by the way, Sparky Anderson. And when he was going out to take a pitcher out of the game, he would not step on that foul line to save his life.
You know, I forgot that.
Yeah.
Right?
He thought it was bad luck.
Right over it, right?
He'd step over it like it was an electric fence. He didn't want any part of that.
Well, you know, I mean, I guess that's another example of the incredible respect he had for the game and the love that he had for the game. And, you know, like the quote you had there from him at Cooperstown. And he was such an incredibly humble man, but also a man of high expectations.
The other funny thing I remember, too, is every year at spring training, we'd call him down there for J.P. McCarthy's show, and he'd be in the Green Tree Restaurant in the Holiday Inn in Lakeland, Florida, and we'd have to get him. He didn't have cell phones, so you'd have to go get him out of the restaurant at 7:30 every day to do the interview. And it seemed like every spring training, he had the next Mickey Mantle. You know what I mean? It would be some player who you'd never heard of, he'd say, wow, this guy is going to be really something. And he had those sort of pet projects along the way, didn't he?
Oh, my gosh. He had such joy about it. And, of course, you know, everybody knows that. I heard somebody say, you know, there was no such thing as a play. He wasn't a player's manager. You know, he was a man. He ran his show, and it was either my way or the highway or get out. But on the other hand, he truly loved those players. So he wasn't their pal, but he loved them, and they knew it. And he held them to high standards, like when he made all those Tigers shave off their mustaches when he first took over the team. And Aurelio Rodriguez, he made him shave off that. I mean, that was tough, but they did it, and they loved it, and they would go through walls for him because he did love them.
And the personal irony for me is that I've got a new book coming out in 2 weeks called Invite Yourself to the Party, and Mr. Sparky Anderson gave me a very nice letter of endorsement, which will be on the back cover. That's already gone to print, and so I appreciate the time I got to spend with him. I know you and your family did too. Ann Doyle with Ann Doyle Strategies at 18 minutes after the hour. It's Guy Fawkes Day. What does that mean? We'll go live to London and find out as soon as we get back. It's Michael Patrick Shields. London is calling this morning. Jacqueline French is the senior PR manager of Visit London in jolly old. How are you today? Thanks for being available.
I'm very well, and thank you for having me.
I'm sure that this day is not lost on you, though some of us here in the States are just sort of learning what it's about. The 5th of November is Guy Fawkes Day. Can you, first of all, explain what that is, and secondly, how it will be remembered or celebrated in London?
Absolutely. Well, remember the 5th of November, as the nursery rhyme goes. What today is all about is back in 1605, there was a plot to assassinate the king and blow up Parliament. Luckily for us and all of the tourists who come to London to see the beautiful Houses of Parliament and obviously Big Ben as well, they failed in their attempt. And what we do to remember the plot and to celebrate the fact that the king wasn't assassinated is we have bonfires and firework displays in celebration that the plot was foiled. So that's what today is all about.
Are you celebrating that the plot was foiled or celebrating that somebody actually tried to do it?
That the plot was foiled.
You sure?
Absolutely.
I'm not sure about that. So these Guy Fawkes masks, I wore one on Halloween last Friday. It's sort of an iconic face, and I do see that mask worn in various protests and that sort of thing. I was in Northern Ireland in Derry a few months ago, and a fellow was wearing a mask like that. He has become still a sort of iconic rebel figure, Guy Fawkes, right?
He has become very iconic, and actually he was one of 13 people who were in this attempted plot, but he's the name that we all remember. And his mask and his kind of that image of his face became very popular in the film V for Vendetta.
Yeah.
So that's kind of brought it to a whole new audience.
That was an eerie movie, to be sure, V for Vendetta. How was that received in London?
I think it went down all right. You know, everyone's a film critic, but certainly, you know, the masks have become popular kind of on fancy dress, whether it's Halloween or something else. So it's interesting how it's almost become a modern icon as well.
Yeah. Remember the 5th of November, gunpowder, treason, and plot. We see no reason why gunpowder treason should ever be forgot. That's the first sort of stanza of that nursery rhyme that you were talking about.
That's right. That's right.
Nikki Hale is our world correspondent. She just walked in here to our Gillespie Group storefront studio. Nikki, please meet Jacqueline French, the senior PR manager of Visit London.
Good morning.
Hi.
What was did you what was your awareness of Guy Fawkes? Was that a big deal for you?
Growing up in England, mainly the bonfire night thing was what I was focused on. And
Bonfire night. What's that all about?
well, people go out and get together a little bit, I suppose, and do bonfire like you do here in the States, very similar. And we have little sparklers for the children, and we gather around, tell stories and things like that. And that was my main memory. And I left England when I was very young, so.
Do they burn Guy Fawkes in effigy still at these bonfire parties, Nikki or Jacqueline?
Well, I have to say, I haven't seen that in a little while, but in sort of central London, you don't see as many sort of the big bonfires. But certainly out in the countryside, people do and give a penny for the guy, and that money will go to charity. So, but I have to say, you know, there are a number of displays going on this evening and tomorrow, and it's really lovely because people do gather in huge numbers. It's a great family atmosphere, and everyone watches the fireworks. I know my local display, they set it to music, and it's very special and a great atmosphere. So it's nice just to get everybody together.
Let me get the second stanza in here just for the fun of it. Guy Fawkes, Guy, 'twas his intent to blow up king and parliament. 70 barrels were laid below to prove old Englanders' overthrow. So they put barrels of gunpowder, three score. That's a lot. I don't know the math, but it's a whole bunch of gunpowder.
Yeah, probably enough to blow up Parliament. I'm sure they looked into it.
By God's mercy, he was catched with a darkened lantern and a burning match. So holler, boys, let the bells ring. Holler, boys, God save the king. And then comes the spooky line. What shall we do with him? Burn him. That's what happened to him? He got burned at the stake, Guy Fawkes?
He was actually hung, drawn, and quartered.
Ouch!
So yeah, so he got his, I guess, just desserts really. If he's going to attempt to blow up the king, but that's what happened to him, and all of the parts were sent to the four corners of the country to warn other possible traitors.
Oh man, that's eerie, isn't it? That drawn and quartering business is mean stuff.
It is very mean, and there's certainly none of that anymore.
That hurts.
And like we said last week, you know, if we're celebrating Guy Fawkes night, what side of it are you celebrating?
That's what I thought, too. I thought he was celebrating that he tried to do it, maybe, instead of that he got caught. I bet you in Northern Ireland they're celebrating that he tried to do it. I'm just guessing. The other thing that I think is neat, when you mentioned, Jacqueline, when you come to London, you can see Parliament and Big Ben right there, and you're not far from Westminster Abbey. You can walk to all these places very nearby.
Absolutely. It's a lovely part of town, and just to wander around and kind of see all the history and heritage. And the lovely thing is you can then kind of cross the river and go on the London Eye and see kind of all the new parts of London as well. So it's a really lovely thing to do, whether you've been here before or if it is your first time to London.
Yeah, that London Eye, for anyone who doesn't know, is that gigantic Ferris wheel that you can go up on it and look down on the Thames River there. And also 10 Downing Street is right very nearby there. And if I'm not mistaken, the Churchill bunkers where he ran the Second World War, I've gone through those, the offices that they had. That's a pretty neat thing to do, too.
Yeah.
It's absolutely fascinating what you can see, and it's amazing that all of those things that you've just mentioned are all in walking distance.
Yeah.
And actually seeing, you know, something like the Cabinet War Rooms, and being that close to such a huge part of London's history, is really moving and so enjoyable to go and see.
You know what else, Nikki and Jacqueline, was really neat for me on the times that I've been to London is that because you know I'm a James Bond fan, right? 007?
Oh, yes.
And that MI6 headquarters that they show in the movies, you can see it. It's right there. You would think that the head of the international spy, headquarters would be hidden somewhere, but it's probably the most obvious building in town. It's this ornate blast right there on the river.
It is, and covered in all of the satellites. And if you're taking a trip down the river, it certainly stands out. But if you do enjoy a little bit of James Bond action, there are a couple of high-speed kind of dinghy, big boats that you can take, which are really good fun. So you kind of whiz up and down the Thames, past Tower Bridge. Really, really good fun. So if you want to be James Bond for the afternoon, I thoroughly recommend it.
Yeah, and that's how they opened up that movie, The World Is Not Enough. Remember the boat?
Exactly.
Yeah, the boat comes flying right out of MI6 headquarters, and you can walk right up there and see it and have your picture taken in front of it and all the rest of it. And Christina Medawar was just in London a couple of weeks ago, our friend here, and she stayed. And it's so ironic. I asked her, where did you stay? And she said, I stayed at the, she couldn't remember the name of the hotel. And I said, the Langham? And she said, yes, I stayed at the Langham, and that's my favorite London hotel, too, right across from the BBC there. That's a hot spot in town, it would seem to me, too.
It is, and what a beautiful hotel. Absolutely gorgeous. Having a brand new spa opening next year, which we're very excited about. And also just a stone's throw from Regent Street and Oxford Street. So you'll satisfy all your shopping needs as well.
I got to make a confession to you, Kathy and Nikki, if I can. Can I do that? Can I make a confession to you, Jacqueline? The last time I was in London, I was out for a night with some journalists, and we went to the Wig and Pen Club. And this story is told in my new book that's coming out called Invite Yourself to the Party. And the Wig and Pen Club was pretty cool, and we had a nice time. And all the journalists wanted to go home, but I wasn't quite ready to go back to the Langham just yet. So I had this nice camel hair jacket and tie and tan trousers and everything. And I said to the London cabbie, which is an experience in itself, these beautiful taxis, can you take me to Annabelle's? Because I heard that was the very exclusive club where Princess Diana used to hang out and lots of famous people. And he said, sir, that's very exclusive. And I said, of course I do. I'd like to go to Annabelle's. So he drove me to Annabelle's. Have you been to Annabelle's, Jacqueline?
I have not been to Annabelle's.
How come?
It's on my list, but I haven't made it yet.
Okay, so I get to Annabelle's, and you go down the steps in the front to get into Annabelle's. And what I did is I just got in behind a fancy-looking couple and got through the door and basically snuck in to this very exclusive club because I wanted to invite myself to the party, right? That's the name of the book. That's what I do. So I get all the way into the back, and it was early, so it wasn't crowded. And I get to the bar, and I ordered a whiskey. And I sat there and I thought, wow, I've made it into Annabelle's. What could happen tonight? This is going to be fantastic. I could meet an heiress. I could meet royalty, some rock stars, And then I looked and I realized that, nobody was paying with cash. It was all a club, right? So I started to think, how am I going to get out of here? I had my one or two fingers of whiskey that they poured for me. So my only mistake, because I was going to ride it out all the way through the night, was I had to go to the bathroom, which was near the front of the club. So when I'm walking to the front of the club, there's a maitre d' there, and there are curtains on both sides, one side for men and one side for ladies. And I took one false step toward the ladies' room because I had to take a guess which side it was.
Right.
Maitre d' came right over, big, tall Frenchman, and he says, sir, as a member of the club, you realize that the men's room's on this side. I said, of course, of course. He said, you are a member, right? And I said, of course. What was I going to say, right?
Right.
And he said, then as a member, you would surely know that we have a very strict dress code. And I'm looking down. I have, a fine camel hair jacket tie. And he says, you can't have a jacket and trousers. You have to have a full suit. And I didn't know what to say, so I said, since when? And he said, well, you're right. During the holidays, we did relax the dress code, but some people actually were wearing denim into the club. And I said, jeans in our club? And he said, I know, it's terrible. I said, well, he said, so now that you know the dress code, perhaps next time. And I said, no. I said, I don't want to disturb the club that I cherish so much in any way, shape, or form. So I'll retire for the evening, and then I appreciate you telling me about the change. And he says, well, all right, sir, thank you very much. And so we had an amicable parting, and I went to the front door, and I couldn't resist, and I stopped, and I turned around, and I said, but do tell me next time about these frivolous dress code changes that you're making. He said, I will, sir. And I went off into the night. So anyway.
So you got a free whiskey, if I'm listening correctly.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. Annabelle spotted me, I think it was an Oban that night. Anyway, the whole point of it is, ladies, on Guy Fawkes Day, that when you go to London, it's an exciting place and exciting things can happen. So I invite you to invite yourself to the party and make the trip to London. Jacqueline French, is there a website where people can check it all out?
There is. You can find everything, what to do, where to stay, where to go at www.visitlondon.com.
VisitLondon.com on this 5th of November, the Gunpowder Treason and Plot Guy Fawkes Day. And we'll be back in a flash. It's Michael Patrick Shields. Nikki Hale, world correspondent. Let's talk about American football, if we can, for just a minute.
Love it.
That's
Let's.
not soccer. That's the armored chest that we call football. And we've got with us this morning Kathy Beauregard, the Western Michigan University Athletic Director. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too. And wow, what a great Bronco fight song you had going in the background.
That is courtesy of our technical director, Tony Cuthbert, and we're going to hear that probably a lot of times tonight as Western Michigan and Central Michigan, the rivalry game, goes on ESPNU in prime time on a Friday night. That's a pretty darn good position. You're literally going to, if you'll pardon the pun, kick off the college football weekend.
We certainly are, and I can tell you this is what college football is all about when you talk about the rivalry between our two great universities in the state of Michigan and the years of great games we've had and great relationships we've had between our staffs and friends at Central Michigan and Western Michigan, and we're excited to be kicking off tonight.
It's unusual because Western Michigan is 3-5 and Central Michigan is 2-7. Disappointing records for both teams, but that's not going to stop the intensity tonight because of the rivalry, right?
No, it certainly won't. Actually, probably the opposite,
Yeah.
because it's certainly both teams have everything to still play for. There's no doubt about it. And when it comes to this game, it definitely is a matter of who really wants it more, and you got to get a little bit of lucky along the way with some good breaks. So we're extremely excited about it, and I know they are too.
Chippewas are favored by 3.5. It's tonight at Central Michigan, Kelly Short Stadium at 6 o'clock, and it's on ESPNU if you can't make it to the game, but that'd be a lot of fun to get yourself there tonight. And we have a lot of friends in Mount Pleasant, a lot of friends in Kalamazoo listening who will be there, and we wish you luck, and we'll talk again soon. Congratulations on a great rivalry tonight, and we appreciate the time.
Thank you so much.
Kathy,
and go Broncos.
Go Broncos, says Kathy Beauregard, the athletic director at Western Michigan University. Ron Van Timmeren is with us from Celebration Cinemas. Nikki Hale, you're excited. You love the movies, huh?
I do. And I actually wanted to ask Ron, when exactly is the new Harry Potter Part 1 of the last book coming out?
Okay, Ron.
2 weeks. It is November 19th, so it is getting very close, and lots of people buying tickets already, especially for those 12:01 midnight shows on the 19th.
So this is the last movie, but it's split into 2 releases. A year apart, will it be, or less?
Less. Actually, next July, I think it's the 15th or 19th, something there, mid-July next summer, will be Part 2 of the Deathly Hallows.
Why do you love Harry Potter so much?
It's so well written. If you've read the books, it's a very, very easy book to read. It's described in such a way that you actually feel like you're in it. And then the movies actually mirror that. And it's hard to see that when you read a book that you go to a movie and you think, oh, it's going to be disappointing. These are not. It's amazing how you're like, oh my gosh, it's just like the book.
J.K. Rowling wrote those books, I'm told, in a coffee shop.
I can imagine. She was homeless at the time, wasn't she?
Yeah, got up in the morning and wrote and liked the white noise, I guess, and all that sort of stuff. So, hey, Ron Van Timmeren, do you remember that movie V for Vendetta?
Sort of.
Sort of. It didn't make that big of a splash. I thought it was pretty stylish, and I'm sure it'll show up on cable today because this is Guy Fawkes Day. Did you see it, Nikki?
I haven't watched it yet.
What in the world? I'm alone in this world.
No, I will watch it. I promise.
You got to rent it.
Yes.
I don't know. How do you rent movies? Do you watch them online, or do you get them on Netflix, or do you go to the old Blockbuster?
We usually buy them.
You buy them. Watch them once and put them on the shelf?
Yeah,
I guess.
It's bad, isn't it? We give it a lot to friends. Friends come over and borrow a lot of DVDs from us, so that's...
All right, so when Blockbuster, they're in bankruptcy, when they go out of business, just go over to your new house.
Come over and see Nikki.
Okay. So I noticed now even Ron Van Timmeren at the gas station, you can rent videos out of a machine. DVDs.
It's really turning the model on its head. A lot of news this week about Warner Brothers announcing this sort of premium VOD method. They're going to try to pick up some of the lost revenue from sell-through, and really that's the big challenge in our business today is that windows of exclusivity in the theaters.
What does that mean? That you get to show a movie that another theater doesn't?
Well, it's just the window between first-run theatrical in the movie theater versus some form of home video. It's been right around averaging 4 months, and right now that model is being tested, and it's a little bit of a threat to our business because we like that exclusivity.
Yeah, well, I mean, do you mean to say that they want to shorten it up so that maybe a movie comes out on, Thanksgiving, and by Christmas you can watch it at home?
Right, right. A very premium product that some of the distributors are thinking about testing, but our industry is working hard not to have that happen.
Yeah,
I don't like it, Nikki.
that's
That's
tough
how you're
because-
going to have date night at the movies.
Right, and that's tough because people might choose to wait,
Oh,
if it's
right.
that close. They might say,
Yeah.
well, I won't go to the movie and get the popcorn. I'll wait until it comes out on DVD.
Well,
which
but
is-
think about all the guys that are taking a lady out for a date, and all they want to do is sit in the dark movie theater and put their arm around them in the chair, right? Or get the
Yes.
courage up to do it. Now they can just say, how'd you like to come over to my living room, sit on the couch, and watch a movie? You're already
It's not
halfway
the
there.
Same, no, it's not the same. You can't change the movie experience. I mean, no matter how
I
you
agree.
put it. Yeah, I love it. I love going to the movies.
It's what it is. It's an escape. The
It
phone's
is.
not going to ring. Someone's not going to knock on the door. You're not going to worry about the kettle boiling in the kitchen. You're there.
Exactly.
We have 30 seconds. Ron, what's on this weekend?
Big Hollywood holiday movie starting this week, Megamind 3D, with Will Ferrell doing the voice. Due Date is also in theaters with Robert Downey Jr. and Zach Galifianakis from the maker of the movie Hangover, and Four Colored Girls, Tyler Perry tackling a very difficult subject. Those are the wide releases in theaters this week.
All right, Ron Van Timmeren.
See the movies.
And you'll probably see Nikki Hale there, too. She loves the movies as much as I do. And what do we have? Mary Poppins is on at the Wharton Center tonight, and that's going to have about a 2-week run there, too, if you like your entertainment on stage. It's 14 before the hour. We're back in a flash. I know you don't want to work today. You want to just relax. I give you permission if you're asking me. Just go ahead and take the rest of the day off. Why not? Nikki Hale loves cars, our world correspondent, and not just to James Bond, Aston Martin. What was the television show you were talking about that you like that has to do with cars?
Oh, Top Gear.
Top Gear. What's
I
that?
love it. It's on BBC America over here.
Oh, I
and,
see.
There's 3 guys that present. They're very goofy and funny, but they do a great job of thoroughly going over cars. If you're interested in them at all, I don't know if you've seen the show.
Well, I've never seen the show.
Oh
I'm
my
You're
god!
going to write it down for me.
Yeah, it's
Okay.
phenomenal. It's like the best. I don't know. I've watched it for 10 years. It started off very small on the BBC, and now it's huge. One of the biggest. It is the biggest show the BBC produces. Makes billions of dollars.
Well, this is Cheryl Freeborough from Hyundai of Lansing. Spent her career in the auto business. Nice to have you here in our Gillespie Group
Thank you for inviting me this morning.
storefront studio.
And the first thing I was going to ask Nikki is about her car. Because
were?
we talked about cars the other day.
Yeah.
And I see you've got a beautiful BMW out there. Which is
She doesn't miss a
gorgeous.
thing.
You don't. That was my husband's choice. Yeah, he
Well,
fell
it's a good
for it.
choice.
Yeah, we looked.
It's a
for long
pre-owned
time.
BMW, mind
It
you.
is. Yes.
But you don't need to tell anybody that.
Well, that's the funny thing, and the people that come to your dealership, the Hyundai of Lansing, in the pre-owned lot, drive away saying, this feels like a new car. It
Right.
smells like a new car even. That new car smells important to people, right?
Yeah. And a friend of mine, I always teased her because she always drove a Cadillac. And I said, wow, you buy these fancy Cadillacs. And she said, nobody knows it's used.
Yeah.
And you don't have to tell people that. They
No.
think you've got this gorgeous car and you can kind of show off.
Well, look what's right in front of it, though. That's the car that I'm test driving from Cheryl's dealership, the 2008 Saturn Aura XE sedan. Now that, Nikki, may look brand new, and you get into it, it might feel brand new, just like your car, but it's got 40,000 miles on it, and that's why it's available at such a good price, only $11,000.
That's a pretty good deal, actually.
Yeah.
The nice part is somebody else has paid the depreciation.
Yes.
And so you get it at a really good price. And if you buy it from the right dealer that takes good care of vehicles, it's going to look good like yours does as well.
Yes.
So-
There was an article on Yahoo this morning that said the best car to buy is the nearly new. So it's
Yes.
not the brand new car, but somebody's taken it and then returned it quickly, or it's got low miles on it.
And the other part of that is the bugs have been worked out of it. Because a
Yeah.
new car, I mean, even with a demo, you'll find little things that we take it in and say, I hear this noise, I hear that noise. There are little bugs sometime. And then when you buy it almost new, those bugs have been kind of worked out of it already because the person that drove it took it to the dealership probably and had those little things fixed for you.
Oh, right.
So
and you
truly,
put it through a big inspection
we do
anyway.
150-point inspection.
150
on
points.
All of our vehicles.
Yeah.
Yes. Number one is safety, of course. You have to make sure that's safe. The brakes, the tires, all of those things. And then you look for all the rest of the little things that could go wrong. Not that it's always perfect because it's mechanical, so it can break. But we sure try to find everything because there's nothing worse than somebody coming back a week later with a problem. That's very frustrating for us because that's not the reputation we want.
Yeah. This one is a gold bronze exterior with a tan cloth interior. And one of the things, as I test drive these different cars and learn about them, your salesman yesterday told me that the glass was some sort of soundproof glass.
Soundproof glass, which
so that
aren't
when you're
in many cars, it's an acoustic glass.
Acoustic glass, so it's nice and quiet in there, and you can hear the radio really well. And he said that there's a display that you do where you have two jars, one with acoustic glass and one with normal glass, and you put pebbles in there or something and shake them
so
up.
that you can hear the difference. So you don't hear as much outside noise. You can really hear the radio and things. And those are little things that aren't as expensive to do to soundproof the vehicle and make, because that's the one biggest complaint is road noise. You know, I hear road noise, I hear these noises, and the quietness in the car is really important to a lot of people.
You know, and you can get features like that in a pre-owned vehicle at Hyundai of Lansing. And there's a story this morning by the Ford Motor Company and MIT, and they say that these high-tech solutions, like the one you're talking about, have really done a great job in reducing driver stress.
Right, right. Especially, you know, for me now, I have about a 45-minute drive to work. And you want to relax, maybe you want to listen to the news. I listen to you. I listen
Thank
to
you.
760. And I wish I could get you in Ohio. That's the next thing I'm trying to do.
Certain days, yeah, okay.
Some days I can. But you do, it's your drive to work and your drive home, and it should be relaxing. And it should be comfortable.
Yeah.
You know.
One of the features they say has gone a long way to reducing stress is the parallel and reverse little window. Like that Hyundai I drove that you have has that little, it's a camera.
Right.
So when you're backing up or parking, you can see exactly how far you can go.
With the Tucson that I'm driving, I used it to back up this morning. And, you know, I'm terrible about parallel parking. And not only can you see where you're going backwards, but you can see sideways, too. So I could see where the curb was to me.
Oh, yeah.
It's a square. I could see where the curb was to me and how close I was getting to the car.
Well, you're lucky you didn't back into my
I am lucky.
Saturn 2008 Saturn Aura there.
Paying for that one.
So it's $11,495. It's 2008 with I think what is it, 40,000 miles, something like
and
that.
And it was new about between 22 and 25.
It's
so
available this
half
weekend
price.
and anytime. I mean, they'll come and take it away from me.
Yeah, we do that often.
If
don't
anybody
we?
wants it, but
He's our good luck charm.
Yeah, there you go.
I'm hearing too, dealers are saying that the Hummer and Pontiac cars are still fashionable with people buying pre-owned cars, even though they don't make them anymore.
They will be. And it's just like Saturns. They don't make them anymore, but that's one of the hottest sellers we have, and the Pontiacs and Hummers are going to become the same way.
Collector's items.
Yes.
Saturn collector's items with the lady who had two Saturn dealerships. Now it's Hyundai of Lansing in Grand Ledge, and you can get pre-owned vehicles of every variety there. Congratulations to you two. Happy Guy Fawkes Day to both of you.
Yes, you too.
Remember, the 5th of November, the gunpowder treason and plot. A little spookiness a week after Halloween here for you. Michael Patrick Shields back with more of your Friday right after the news.
Call me Big Papa when I throw pesos their way.